The coffee spilled across the counter in slow motion, dark liquid seeping into the stack of unpaid bills. David lunged for the papers, but it was too late. As he stood there, hands trembling, his daughter's voice called from upstairs about another nightmare. This was his life now, a constant state of barely holding it together. But what David couldn't know, as he mopped up the mess at 2 a.m., was that in exactly 3 weeks, a woman with autumn-colored hair would walk through the door of his bookstore and change everything. If you're feeling that pull to know what happens next, you're not alone. Hit that like button and subscribe to follow more stories that remind us second chances come when we least expect them. Your support means everything to this channel, and trust me, you'll want to see how David's broken world gets pieced back together in ways he never imagined possible. David Morgan hadn't slept properly in 347 days. Not since Sarah's car had skidded on black ice and wrapped around a tree, leaving him alone with their 6-year-old daughter, Lily. The doctors had called it instantaneous, a small mercy, they'd said. But there was nothing merciful about the hollow space in his bed or the way Lily still set the table for 3. Their Victorian house on Maple Street, once filled with Sarah's laughter and the scent of her famous cinnamon rolls, now felt like a museum of what they'd lost. Photographs remained exactly where Sarah had placed them. Her gardening gloves still hung by the back door, caked with dried soil from the last time she'd tended her beloved roses. David moved through his days like a ghost. Wake up. Make Lily breakfast. Drop her at school. Open the bookstore his grandfather had left him. Close the bookstore. Pick up Lily. Make dinner. Help with homework. Tuck her in. Repeat. The only variation came in the form of Lily's nightmares, which meant David often found himself sitting beside her bed at odd hours, stroking her hair until she fell back asleep. "Daddy, do you think Mommy can see us from heaven?" Lily asked one morning as David attempted to braid her hair, another skill he'd had to learn through YouTube tutorials. "I'm sure she can, sweetheart," he replied, his fingers fumbling with the strands. "Then why is she letting us be so sad?" The question knocked the wind from his lungs. David had no answer that wouldn't sound hollow, so he simply kissed the top of her head and finished the lopsided braid. Morgan Books had been a fixture in Oakwood for over 50 years. David had grown up among its shelves, inhaling the scent of paper and possibility. After college, he'd taken over from his aging grandfather, modernizing where necessary but maintaining the store's soul. Sarah had loved the place as much as he did, often bringing lunch and sitting with him during slow afternoons. Now, the store felt like both sanctuary and prison. The familiar shelves offered comfort, but every corner held memories of Sarah browsing for her next read or Lily sprawled on the children's section rug. Business had been declining steadily. Online retailers and ebooks had taken their toll, and David's heart wasn't in the marketing efforts needed to compete. The bills piled up. The roof needed repairs. Lily needed new shoes. And David needed a miracle he didn't believe in anymore. It was a Tuesday in October when she walked in. The bell above the door chimed, and David looked up from his inventory spreadsheet to see a woman shaking raindrops from an umbrella. Her hair caught the light, not quite red, not quite brown, but something in between that reminded him of autumn leaves. "Sorry about the puddle," she said, smiling apologetically as she closed her umbrella. "It really started coming down out there." "No problem," David replied automatically. "Can I help you find something?" "Actually, I'm looking for the owner. I'm Elena Winters, the new elementary school librarian. I was hoping to discuss a potential partnership." David extended his hand. "David Morgan. That would be me." Her handshake was firm, her eyes a clear, intelligent green. "Perfect. I've been trying to establish a reading program that connects local businesses with the school. When I heard there was an independent bookstore in town, I thought it might be a natural fit." As Elena outlined her vision, author visits, reading challenges, discounts for students, David found himself nodding along. For the first time in nearly a year, something at work had captured his interest. "It sounds promising," he admitted. "Though I should warn you, we're not exactly thriving at the moment." Elena's smile didn't falter. "All the more reason to try something new, don't you think? The school has some grant money for literacy initiatives. This could benefit both of us." They agreed to meet again later that week to hash out details. As Elena turned to leave, she paused by a display of children's books. "Oh, I love this one," she said, picking up a copy of The Secret Garden. "I read it to my nephew all the time before he moved away." "It's my daughter's favorite too," David said before he could stop himself. "She says it gives her hope that dead things can come back to life." The words hung in the air between them. Elena's expression softened with understanding, though David hadn't explained. "Smart girl," she said simply. "Hope is a powerful thing." After she left, David realized he'd smiled during their conversation, a genuine smile, not the polite grimace he'd been offering customers for months. The partnership with the school began to take shape. Elena proved to be organized and passionate, qualities that had once defined David too. They scheduled their first event, a Halloween-themed reading night where children could come in costume and listen to spooky, but not too spooky, stories. "Daddy, can I help?" Lily asked when he told her about it. "I could wear my witch costume and hand out candy." "That's actually a great idea, Lil. I'll ask Ms. Winters if we can make you an official helper." Lily's eyes lit up, another first in a long time. "Is Ms. Winters nice?" David thought about Elena's laugh, the way she'd sent him links to articles about successful bookstore-school partnerships, her genuine excitement about connecting children with books. "Yes," he said. "She's very nice." The night of the event, David found himself actually looking forward to something. He'd ordered special Halloween-themed bookmarks to give away and arranged the store's reading nook with pumpkins and battery-operated candles. Elena arrived early to help set up, dressed as a librarian from the 1950s, complete with cat-eye glasses and a pencil tucked behind her ear. "Very creative costume," David teased. "I'm method acting," she replied with a wink. "Where's your costume?" David gestured to the name tag he'd made, Exhausted Bookstore Owner. Elena laughed. "Fair enough. Where's your little witch?" "Getting her face painted green by our neighbor. She'll be here soon." The event exceeded all expectations. 37 children plus parents packed into the store. David read from Room on the Broom while Elena led a craft activity. Lily took her candy distribution duties very seriously, solemnly offering each child a piece from her cauldron. When the last family had left, David, Elena, and Lily sat among the scattered remnants of construction paper and candy wrappers. That, Elena said, was a success. It really was, David agreed, surprised by how energized he felt despite the long evening. "Thank you for pushing me to do this." "I didn't push. I just opened a door. You walked through it." Lily, green face paint now smudged across her cheek, leaned against David's arm. "Can we do Christmas stories next, Daddy? With hot chocolate?" Before David could answer, Elena jumped in. "That's a brilliant idea, Lily. Maybe with cookies too?" "Yes." Lily clapped her hands. "And we could make paper snowflakes to hang in the windows." David watched his daughter's excitement with a mixture of joy and something like grief. Sarah would have loved seeing Lily like this, animated, planning, dreaming. He caught Elena watching him, her expression gentle. "You okay?" she mouthed over Lily's head. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Later, after Lily had fallen asleep still wearing half her costume, David sat on his porch with a beer. His phone buzzed with a text from Elena, "Thanks for tonight. Your daughter is amazing. You're doing a great job, you know." David stared at the words, his throat tight. No one had told him he was doing a good job in a very long time. Most people just looked at him with pity or offered platitudes about time healing all wounds. Elena's straightforward acknowledgement of his efforts felt like someone had thrown him a rope in rough waters. He typed back, "Thanks. That means more than you know." November brought colder weather and a steady increase in customers at Morgan Books. The Halloween event had reminded locals that the store existed, and Elena's school connection brought in parents looking for books on their children's reading lists. David and Elena fell into a comfortable rhythm of planning events and discussing books. She came by the store several times a week, sometimes bringing coffee or homemade cookies that Lily declared almost as good as Mommy's. One afternoon, as they worked on flyers for the Christmas reading night, Elena asked about Sarah. "You don't have to talk about it," she added quickly when David went still. I've heard bits and pieces from people in town, and I'd rather know your version than theirs." David set down his pen. "It's okay. It was a car accident, last winter. Black ice. She was coming home from her mother's house." The facts were easier to share than the feelings. Elena nodded, waiting to see if he would continue. She was an elementary school art teacher, he found himself saying. Creative, funny, patient. The kind of person who made friends everywhere she went. She could have done anything, been anything, but she loved teaching kids to see beauty in the world. "She sounds wonderful," Elena said softly. She was. "And I'm still figuring out how to be a father and a mother to Lily, how to run this place without her ideas, how to..." He gestured vaguely. "How to be a whole person again." Elena reached across the table and briefly touched his hand. "From where I'm sitting, you're doing remarkably well. Some days are better than others," he admitted. "That's how it goes with grief. It's not linear." Something in her tone made David look up. "You sound like you know." Elena's smile turned sad. "My brother and sister-in-law, my nephew's parents, died in a house fire 3 years ago. That's why he moved away, he went to live with my aunt in Colorado." "I'm sorry," David said, the words inadequate but sincere. "Me too. For both of us." They worked in companionable silence after that, the shared understanding of loss creating a bridge between them that hadn't been there before. The Christmas reading event was even more successful than Halloween. David dressed as Santa, Elena as an elf, and Lily insisted on being a reindeer. The store glowed with string lights, and the scent of hot chocolate and cinnamon filled the air. As David read The Polar Express, he looked up to see Elena watching him, her expression soft in the twinkling lights. Something shifted in his chest, a feeling he'd thought had died with Sarah. Later, as they cleaned up, Lily fell asleep on the reading nook's beanbag chair, exhausted from the excitement. "I should get her home," David said, looking down at his sleeping daughter. "Let me help you to the car," Elena offered. Outside, snow had begun to fall, dusting the street with white. David carried Lily, and Elena held his keys, opening the car door so he could gently place his daughter in her booster seat. "Thank you for tonight," he said as they stood in the gently falling snow. "For everything, really. The store is doing better, Lily is happier, and I'm..." "You're what?" Elena asked when he didn't continue. "I'm starting to remember what it feels like to look forward to things." Elena's smile was radiant in the glow of the streetlight. "That's a good thing, David." "It is," he agreed. "But it's also scary. Because it feels like moving on." He nodded, unable to articulate the complicated guilt that came with each moment of happiness. "I don't think we ever really move on from the people we've lost," Elena said thoughtfully. "We just make room for new joy alongside the grief. The two can coexist." David looked at her, really looked at her, standing in the snow with flakes catching in her autumn hair. Before he could overthink it, he leaned forward and kissed her cheek. "Merry Christmas, Elena." Her eyes widened slightly, but her smile remained. "Merry Christmas, David." January brought a setback. The store's heating system failed during a cold snap, requiring an emergency replacement that drained the modest financial cushion David had built up over the past few months. "We'll figure it out," Elena assured him as they sat in the back office, reviewing the damage to the budget. "The Valentine's Day event will bring in customers, and I've been talking to the middle school about expanding our partnership." David ran a hand through his hair. "I appreciate the optimism, but this puts us right back where we started. I'm starting to think the universe doesn't want this place to succeed." "The universe is neutral, David. It's not out to get you." "Tell that to my wife," he snapped, immediately regretting the words. Elena didn't flinch. "That's not fair, and you know it." He sighed, deflating. "You're right. I'm sorry. It's just, every time things start looking up, something knocks us back down. That's life, not a conspiracy. We get knocked down, we get back up." "We?" he asked, catching the pronoun. Elena's cheeks colored slightly. Figure of speech. "But yes, I'm invested in seeing this place succeed. I believe in what you're doing here." The simple declaration of faith meant more to David than she could know. For months after Sarah died, he'd been going through the motions, keeping the store open out of obligation rather than passion. Somewhere along the way, perhaps when Elena had first walked through the door with her ideas and energy, he'd started to care again. "Thank you," he said. "For believing in this place. In me." "You make it easy," she replied with a small smile. The Valentine's Day event, Fall in Love with Reading, brought a different crowd to the store. Couples browsed together, and David had created displays featuring literary love stories alongside Elena's recommendations for children's books about different kinds of love. Lily had appointed herself Cupid, wearing paper wings and handing out heart-shaped bookmarks she'd made with Elena's help. "My daddy needs extra love," she informed one startled customer. "My mommy's in heaven, so he gets lonely." David, overhearing, felt his face burn with embarrassment. "Lily, honey, we don't need to tell everyone our personal business." "But Ms. Elena said it's okay to talk about mommy," Lily protested. "She said keeping feelings inside makes them bigger and scarier." David glanced at Elena, who was arranging cookies on a tray across the room. "Ms. Elena is right about that, but there's a difference between talking about our feelings and announcing them to strangers." Lily considered this. "Okay. I'll only tell people we know." After the event, when Lily was having a sleepover at her friend Emma's house, David invited Elena for dinner to thank her for her help. "Nothing fancy," he warned as they walked to his house. "I'm not much of a cook." "I'm not picky," she assured him. The house felt different with Elena in it. As she moved through the rooms, admiring Sarah's artwork on the walls and the family photos on the mantel, David saw his home through new eyes. It wasn't just a mausoleum of memories anymore, it could be a living space again. Over pasta and wine, their conversation flowed easily. Elena told him about growing up in a small town in Michigan, her decision to become a librarian after a childhood spent hiding in books, her dream of writing children's stories someday. "What about you?" she asked. "Did you always want to run a bookstore?" David twirled pasta around his fork, considering. "Not exactly. I studied business in college, thought I might go corporate. But when my grandfather needed help with the store, I came back temporarily. Then I met Sarah, and temporary became permanent." "Do you regret it?" "No," he said without hesitation. "The store gave us a good life. Flexible hours when Lily was born, work that meant something. Sarah used to say we were lucky to spend our days surrounded by stories." Elena smiled. She was right. After dinner, they moved to the living room with their wine. David built a fire, and they sat on the couch, the comfortable silence of people who didn't need to fill every moment with words. "Can I ask you something personal?" Elena said eventually. "Of course. Do you think you'll ever?"